Whitney. How are you, dear?
I'm excellent. How are you both doing today?
Very good.
We be good.
Good.
How was your Christmas?
Christmas was excellent. Very low key, which is exactly how we like it in my house.
That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Did you go anywhere fun, or did y'all just stay around?
No, we just stayed around. I have a 14-year-old, and so my commitment to her was to allow her to just have Christmas at home and not have to go anywhere and do anything and see family and just enjoy her day and be able to play with the things that she gets. So that's just something I took on board a long time ago because I had to travel too much as a kid. So we stay home.
I get that. Just one kid? Just one child?
Just the one, and she's big into volleyball right now. So that's that's challenging, just because she's got practice so many nights a week. But she really enjoys that, and that keeps her out of trouble, and that's always a good thing for a teenager,
Absolutely.
right?
I got a 15-year-old, and she's swimming about every other night of the week. So, and some mornings, she went to swim practice the Christmas Eve morning at 7 a.m.
Oh,
because she got talked into it by everybody else on the swim team. They were like, "Riley, are you coming to swim on Christmas Eve practice? It's the best one of the year." So she was like,
"Yes, I want to be up during my holiday early."
It's fun.
Yeah,
so she's having a blast with that stuff.
Well, it's good for them to have something to do. It certainly keeps them occupied off of a device and out of trouble.
Yes, I would agree with that. Now, all right, since you're on family, we did just see something on LinkedIn where your husband got a little accolade or something. Remind me of what that was and how long you've been married and all that jazz.
So he has been promoted to lieutenant with the city of Seattle. Okay. So he's been with Seattle for 26 years. Started in patrol, has moved up, and he was in patrol for a really long time. Just decided that, he wanted to wait to become a supervisor. So he became a sergeant about 5 years ago. And then lieutenant was the next step. And his plan is to retire in 5 years. After the kid is out of school. So we'll see how that works. And we've been married 20 years. This year in 2024, it'll be 21 years in April.
Awesome.
Man, we're all about the same. Yeah. I'll be 20 years this year. I think Cori's.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I started in HVAC in 2002, we were dating. And he proposed the Christmas of that 2002, and we got married in 2003. Okay. So he's been with me my whole HVAC career.
All right, so that's a perfect segue, since a lot of people are wondering who's Cori Whitney and how's she get in the HVAC business?
Oh, shoot. It's kind of funny. I think about it now, because if you had asked me when I was a kid if I'd ever get into HVAC, I would have told you, what's HVAC? Had no clue. I had been working for a .com that went .gone, and it was time to find a new thing. And, what I didn't like about that industry was there wasn't a lot of stability. That was an industry that, everybody was going to go pre-IPO, make a ton of money, and it was going to be great, but it just was really tumultuous. And so when I started looking for a new job, I knew a guy who worked for a headhunter, and he said, "Hey, I want you to come and talk to this company about, HVAC for sales." And I go, I don't even know what that is. And he goes, "Well, it's heating and air conditioning." And I'm like, "Well, what's the V stand for?" And he goes, "I don't know. You'll have to ask."
I'm not the only one.
Ventilation.
That's right.
Well, I worked in buildings and I'd see guys show up, but, it didn't matter to me other than if it was too cold inside or too hot inside, whether I cared about what was going on in the building, right? So HVAC didn't mean nothing to me. So I interviewed with a company called TCMS, or they were also known as Temp Control Mechanical Service, and they were part of the Link network. And I had an interview a week for 2 months straight.
Cool.
My family wanted to know if I was going to go work for the federal government.
Like, no, it's not nearly that sexy.
Yeah, would have been
No.
would have been a lot easier to get a job there, I suspect.
Well, it is, but I mean, at the time frame when you think about it, I was told a long time ago that it's about, I don't know, $180,000, give or take, to bring a new rep, to hire them, train them, get them up to speed, pay them. And so you want to make sure you're making a good hire, right? The right person for the job, not just anybody for it, just because they think they can do it. So I got it. And, I've been doing it now almost 20, going on 23 years.
The only thing that I didn't like the length, only because I did the same thing. About 3 months, I'm hearing nothing. I did not have an interview a week. It was like you had something, and then 2 months down the road, I'm like, I almost took another job because I hadn't heard anything, right? So I thought it was, but they were following the link model, so it's okay. Cool.
Yeah. What I can tell you is I learned a lot. I still, the funny thing is when people ask me, they go, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I make buildings work better." And they go, "Well, what does that mean?" Right? And so I just, I sell proactive preventative maintenance service agreements for, and then I list all the buildings and that kind of stuff that we do. I said, but I just make things work better is really what I do. Make them work better, last longer, be more efficient, right? And why do I like it is the other one they always ask me. And I go, because I get to do some really cool stuff and go to some really cool places and see some really cool things. I mean, I've been in the VMAC training center for the Seahawks, right? Mm-hmm. I've surveyed that whole building. I get to go in food manufacturing plants. Sometimes I get a little take home, a little swag, a little something to try. That's cool.
We got a cheesecake in the Cheesecake Factory one time. That was pretty awesome.
Oh, did you? Yeah, it's fun. I mean, who else can say they get to go behind the scenes of these buildings and go in secured facilities and, see what people do and what they make. So that's probably my favorite part of my job is it's different a lot, and I get a lot to see a lot of things.
So the fact that it's a male-dominated industry didn't have any deterrent for you, especially in 02 or 03. I guess there are a few more ladies that have joined the crowd since then. But was there any take on that for you? Or was that really not?
Well, I have 2 stepbrothers and an older brother who's a half brother. But I did everything with my dad. My dad hunted and fished, so I'm used to doing non-typical girl things. I used to help him work on his Jeep. Not like I do any wrench turning or anything, but if he'd ask me for a Phillips or a ratchet or whatever, I'd
hold the flashlight. Be still.
Yeah, hold the flashlight was a big one. Right here, don't move. So and he was in the fishing industry. So I worked there after school selling fishing tackle baits licenses. So I just was always used to not doing typical girl things. And so, I have to say it was kind of an intrigue for me to do something that not a lot of women did. And when I was interviewing, actually, it was only women they were interviewing at the time. So I was one of 5. And, it came down to like the last 2, the first 3 washed out because 3 of them didn't want to climb a roof, which I thought was really interesting. I was never afraid of heights. And then, I got the job. But, it's been very interesting, being a woman in a very male-dominated industry. But I've always really enjoyed it because not a lot of people are doing it. And so where it was unique for me trying to get an appointment was harder than it was my male counterparts because guys, they get automatic credit just for being a guy when you're talking to somebody. And I was a novelty, right? So what is this girl? What does she have to say? Why do I want to set a meeting with her? And I was in a very old male dominated market where what I ended up doing is I had a picture on my laptop when, if you remember, Link did the slideshow on your laptop on the thing. And I had a picture first, though, when I'd walk into that appointment with that client, and it was my husband with something dead right on the front. On the screen. So I pull it open, husband dead. And they'd go, "Oh, your husband hunts. I'm assuming that's your husband." I go, "Yes." What does he do? And I'm, sometimes you tell him, sometimes you don't. So
he's a police officer. No, that's great. Next.
Yeah. And then they go, "So he shoots. Do you shoot?" And I go, "Yes." "Do you hunt?" "A little." And they go, "Okay, we can talk now."
Yeah. Hey.
Apparently, if you could carry a gun, you were good. And, so you just, you always knew who you had to meet with. But I had a couple customers say they thought I should be selling makeup. It was very interesting. And you just, you got a tough skin, and you had to, just because it was the nature of it. But I never let it deter me. I've been told I'm tenacious.
Well, that's a good thing, actually.
Good thing.
Persistent. Yes.
Have you?
I'm okay with that.
Have you always been on the maintenance side, or have you ever dabbled in anything else?
Well, I have done some managing. I was a general manager for a little bit, but maintenance sales has always been my primary focus, and I'm stupid passionate about it. Just because when you've been doing this as long as we all have, we've seen the businesses and the buildings that we've impacted by what we do. How you can make a building work better that didn't. Customers who would say, "Gosh, I wish I'd listened to you when you talked to me 2 years ago. Gosh, everything works so much better than it ever did before. This was the dumbest, best decision I ever made." So that for me has always really kind of kept me doing the maintenance thing. Teeing up the project team and helping, them sell stuff is something I just did naturally, but I like maintenance sales. It's what drives the business.
It's fun.
Well, I know, David Parks, the president there, he had talked to me when he was in the process of trying to hire you. Super excited because you'd been in that market for a long time and he knew you'd been successful. So being that you had been in the market and had been successful for a while, what convinced you to leave and go to where you are?
Well, it's very interesting because, I've worked for 2 different mechanical contractors. This is my 3rd in my whole career. If you had asked me, 10 years ago, even if I would have ever left where I was at the time, I would have probably have said no. I interviewed with PSR way back in the day, and they're really great, really well known. And that's pretty much why I did. But the reason I came specifically was to work with David Parks. PSR, it's funny, has amazing and shockingly name brand recognition in this market. Like, they're really well known, they're really well respected, and it's so nice to come and work for a company that truly understands and appreciates maintenance. Because I worked for a construction company for 3 years, and I remember thinking back in the day, if I could only work for a construction company, God, wouldn't it be great? Because I could just walk into every building that they sold something on or installed, and I'll just automatically get a service agreement. It don't work like that.
The great lie. The great lie. Yeah.
The great lie. And, perception, is when you're there too, if you're not selling a $5 million construction project, that's just, who are you? And that little 4 or 10 or 8 or $20,000 agreement, that's nice. Good job. Pat on the back. But they didn't value it as much as service companies, where that specifically drives their business and their revenue. I mean, so being back in maintenance, so I was at TCMS, and then I worked for the construction company for just shy of 3 years. And then I've been here almost 3 years now. It's so much better. You're appreciated, you're valued, you're supported. And there is something to be said for all of that when you're someplace that doesn't value what you're doing and recognize it as a good thing, as an important thing.
Yeah, I like that. Did you
Very good.
you said you've been in the market a long time. Did you grow up in Seattle?
Yep, I'm born and raised. I've lived here my whole life in the
Yeah,
Seattle-ish
yeah.
area, so in the burbs, really. So Tacoma, Auburn is, where Auburn is where I
Yeah.
graduated from school. But my dad has lived here his whole life. My mom the same way. So I know this market really, really well. I mean, my first 8 years I was in the South End territory when I started with the TCMS location, and then I came up and opened their Seattle office in 2008. Funnily enough, when PSR left the Link network, and I opened the branch in Seattle, and I was there just over 10 years.
Hmm. Now, is the coffee
So
from Starbucks any better in Seattle than it is where we live?
I hope so.
I don't think so, but it's a consistent cup of coffee across the board. I call them Charbucks
Charlotte, they is a
personally.
little burnt.
I think they over roasted. Well, we've got some really great coffee roasters
Sure.
around here. Everybody like wineries. Wineries, you can hit one on just about any corner. I swear to God, if you go to certain areas, coffee companies are the same way, but there's a lot of new ones. But yeah, Seattle is, definitely got its share of things that they're really great
Sure.
at, and things they're like, it's good, but their marketing is amazing.
Starbucks needs those 3 pumps of whatever they're putting in it, to overcome the coffee
They
flavor.
do. Absolutely.
So, Corey,
Absolutely.
For folks who have never been to Seattle, what do you love? Being a lifelong, resident of the place, what do you love most about it?
Oh God, the mountains. The mountains are, and it's funny. My husband grew up in the St. Louis area. Well, actually, just northwest of there, in a really small town in Illinois. So it's flat,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
It's very flat there, and so we have mountains here, and we have rivers, and they're all clean and green. And I can drive 20 minutes and go hike a nice little mountain, or I can drive 30 minutes and go fishing in a great lake. I
That's
can
fun.
go 45 minutes and ski 2 or 3 different mountain peaks if I wanted to. So, and plus we have, and this is my husband. He's a hunter. He hunts and he fishes, and you can pretty much almost hunt year round and fish year round, depending on what it is. If you're waterfowling or upland bird hunting, or then if you're doing deer and elk, which are amazing here. Gosh, you go 20 minutes up the road and they have herds of elk that are so massive you can't even understand how big they are. And again, you can go fishing from April through the summer months, and it's beautiful here. So we, as much as we tell people it rains all the time because we don't want them to move here, it's much nicer than most people think. Plus, we don't have all the humidity you guys have.
Shane, an elk is a big deer, basically.
It's a big deal. That's right. And look,
Huge deer.
Corey, I'm glad you said that. My
Big
wife and I,
racks.
before we had kids, we traveled some, and we took a couple trips out there, and we took a 9-day trip to Washington and Oregon in January.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like ready for it. We show up. It was sunny for 9 straight days. I was like, these
Oh wow.
people are full of crap, man. They're just lying to everybody. But I found out, especially in Oregon, that was not the case, because every restaurant we went to, they were like, the hostess was like, "Do you want to sit by the window? The sun is shining." And and I was like, "You can't be that guy, right?" He was like, "No, I'm from somewhere sunny. Let somebody else sit there. Like, you can't be a jerk and act like you can't do it." But I was like, "It must be for real," because I mean, everywhere we went, everybody was doing jumping jacks because the sun was out. So, but I agree with you. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous part of the country. So much to do outside out there.
Yeah, and when I live in a little suburb it's called Bonnie Lake, and literally we have the freeway that takes you up to the house, and the mountain is like right there as you come to the crest of the hill. It's the most amazing thing, and the sunrises and the sunsets are epic. I send pictures to some of my peer group across across the country. In fact, my buddy over at Air Force One, Jim Johnson. So I'll send him pictures of the mountain, and he's just like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." So it's fun to send them to people who don't have
Absolutely.
that. So
All right,
Yeah.
Cori.
What do you like the least about it?
The freaking rain.
Well, a lot of the rain, we've had an atmospheric rainfall, that's happened within the last bit. And when you're trying to get on a roof and do a survey and it's coming down sideways and buckets, you reschedule. So, for our industry and our business, it can get very challenging at certain times to get things accomplished because the weather conditions just don't support the things that we do. So it's probably my least favorite thing about it. Oh, and well, the local government.
Yeah.
That's another conversation.
That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole nother conversation. But, but as a state, it's beautiful. I can't beat it. Although I do like it over there in Charlotte.
It is nice. Yeah, this isn't that kind of podcast, is it? We're talking about air conditioning.
I know.
Hey, I got one for you, Cori. All right, so think back to, I think you said 02 or 03, whatever it was, when you started in the business. Because, all of us are salespeople, so a lot of salespeople, especially within Service Logic, are going to probably view this. What made you successful? In the first year or two is basically what you got to figure this game out, right? So what made you successful? And maybe what did you do that's unique to help grow your business or be successful?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I've been told I'm persistent. And that's probably the thing that I heard the most. In fact, we had a meeting one day with a client, and my general manager and our president at the time happened to be on this meeting with this client. And, during this meeting, he said, well, one of them, I think, asked the customer, why did you finally sign? And he goes, just so she'd stop calling me. And he joked and he laughed. He goes, but in all honesty, he said she was persistent. When she did what she said she was going to do. So if she said she was going to follow up with me in June, she followed up with me in June. She kept coming back and just, being polite and amenable and all these things, but kept telling me the things that, last year, hey, how are things, and checking up on me and that kind of thing. And he goes, so I just had to give her a chance because she was so good about being persistent and doing what she said she's going to do. And my boss was really concerned at the time. He's like, oh my God, did she? And he goes, no. He goes, I'll hire her in a minute. If you don't want her, I'll take her. So, oh yeah, well, what makes good salespeople are people who, just because a no today doesn't mean a no forever. It just means no right now. And more than anybody else, I was really good at following back up with those clients, tracking that information, and being in the same territory for a long time was super important too, because though you had those chances to have those conversations, and it was a warm conversation. It wasn't a cold call. It was a much easier segue. And if they let me survey their site that year, then I could go, how are things? Do you want me to go back up and see if it looks as good or worse than last year? So those kinds of things really made it easy for me. But, being organized was really important for me to, again, make sure that I did what I said I was going to do and to follow back up with that customer. And I wanted to go into the stuff and sell the stuff that nobody else really wanted to sell, which to get me to my plan and to get me there faster meant it needed to be big and it needed to be important. Yeah. So I really started focusing on industrial sites. I went after the big guys. I learned what I needed to learn to be and have a good conversation with a client, knew it and was important to them, what mattered to them, ask a lot of questions, and just be willing to learn more about what was their need. And then really just execute that sale and then make sure that we did what we said we were going to do.
If anybody's watching and wants a little sales training, just rewind that and watch it over and over a couple times. That's pretty good. Yeah, I find that the persistence is just a really a positive comment, because most people are lazy. So they don't know how to say you're doing a dang good job, right? They're not going to say that, but they're just going to say, well, you're persistent, right? So go ahead, Terry.
Well, the thing that I've learned is, it's hard to get traction when you're not following up on everything you already have. There's, like you said, it takes about a year or two to, really start to get to know your clients. You're given what you're given, and there's a lot of that initially. And it's really important for a salesperson to learn the role and the function first and the equipment and all that kind of stuff. But, it's that persistent piece. And, probably what also really helped me is I had a lot of really patient and wonderful technicians that dedicated some time to teach me more. And now, mind you, it's a willingness and a drive to want to learn it, right? To want to know more, to be an expert in your field, to be better than anybody else in your market. And because I was a woman, because I was in a very male dominated market, again, paper mills, lumber mills, that kind of stuff. You had to know more. So that was really helpful for me. And, that doesn't come but with time and experience and people willing to teach you more. But, you have to, again, be always willing to learn and always willing to learn to ask a lot of questions. And I find if you have salespeople that want to do that, you will have really successful people because there's multiple facets to our business, multiple things that we have to do to be successful. And, being, tenacious and all of those things is super important, but being able to listen and learn is also really important. And if you have those things, you can have a really successful salesperson or a successful team.
So you have since gone into sales management, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the differences in being an individual contributor at a sales level and then having to do sales management and the trends and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I'm still selling myself, right? Mm-hmm. So, but I have a team of two. We have a very large territory right now. The, plan is always to grow that territory down the road, but growth has to be for the right things and the right reasons. And then when you grow it, you have to have the staff to not only take care of it technically, but also to support it. When I was a general manager, I learned a lot of things about operations and how that impacts the business, not only from the sales standpoint, but from the operation standpoint. And we always had a thing that we said that if you sell it right, you start it right, you service it right, it'll stay right. Because all of those things are so important. It doesn't do us any good if we sell maintenance that we don't take care of manage and we lose it just as quick as we sell it. Mm-hmm. Turnover, cancellations are terrible for our business. Making sure we're selling to the right customers is really super important. So I'm constantly talking to my team of don't just sell it because you can sell it. Make sure they understand what we're trying to do, because if they're going to bid us out on every project, if they're going to bid us out on every quote repair, that's not going to be a long-term customer we're going to manage and maintain if they don't see the value of what we are trying to do and what we're trying to sell. So, you're trying to get your team to understand that there's a lot of things that impact what we do and how we do it. And that is what really helps them. And then that way they have companies they can go to get references so they can sell. You're also dividing your time between trying to sell your plan and help them manage theirs. But if you have your right team in place, you have people that are fairly autonomous and you say, hey, look, at the end of the day, I've got my own things that I need to do. This is the adult program. So the way that works is if you need help, you got to tell me. I can't read your mind. I can't read my husband's. So you need to communicate. And that's the biggest thing that our team really focuses on, is making sure we have good, clear communication, that we talk regularly, and then we get together and we have our meetings and we talk about our challenges as salespeople, how I can help them and support them, what tools and resources they need to be more effective in their role in their job. Things like that, so we can all be as effective as possible and we can sell as much as we possibly can. So we had a really good year this last year. Really proud of my team. We got a brand new guy who came on board in March, and he hit 80% of his plan. And I'm actually okay with that. He did really, really good. He's learning great. My sales guy in the last 11th hour just beat my numbers with a roll up to an existing
Come
customer.
on.
So it happens.
So Shane, we had a call with Cori's crowd with an industrial client early last year, and it was me, Cori Whitney, Cori Marsula,
or
all on the
Marsula.
same call. So
That's terrible.
we were confusing that brother to
The Cori
death.
Show.
Look at the spellings of them all, brother.
And it's funny here because when I came on board and they said there was a Cori, I go, you got to be kidding. There's
Never a
never,
Cori.
ever been another Cori. So we have to go girl
That's
Cori,
right.
boy Cori, North Cori, South Cori, right?
That's right.
That's how, when you're trying to, figure out who's who when they're talking about something.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, it's interesting.
Well, that's fun. All right, Cori, last question for me, I think. What is a highlight? If you can't narrow it to one and you got one or two or three or whatever, spit them out. But what is a significant highlight from your career that stands out?
Golly. I would probably say from my Link days was
There
President's
you
Club.
go. Come on.
So I had a very successful string of years, and I had three of them, which was 05, 06,
Yeah.
07. So I was able to go to three President's Clubs. Now I know Service Logic doesn't do that, but for a salesperson, I mean, our jobs are tough. We, get told no more than we get told yes. So to have that kind of recognition in a group of people. I mean, I don't know how many were in the network. I don't remember, but to be super successful with that many people who were super successful was amazing, right? To be a part of a group of very, limited people who got to have that kind of recognition. And it was just really fun. But, through the years of HVAC service and companies that I've worked for, I'd have to say that probably the highlight of being in HVAC has been at PSR. It's just such a great group. They're so family oriented here. It's amazing. And, this is where I think I'm going to be ending my career. Who knows? Who knows, right? So many things can happen. But, I can't say it enough. I still really like what I do. I still like coming to work every single day. And to me, that's,
Hard to beat that.
my other highlight. Because how many people
I
can
know.
say
A lot
that?
of people get up every morning and drag it in. All right, so I lied.
Yep.
One more. Did you know Sue Russell by chance before you joined from maybe some of those awards events, maybe from Link Days?
No, I didn't. It was funny when I was interviewing, David's like, hey, he goes, it's really funny. You so remind me of somebody. And I said, well, who's that? He goes, well, it's this gal. She works for this other company in Denver. He said, but if you're really seriously considering coming to work here, I think you should talk to her so she can tell you a little bit about Service Logic and stuff like that. And God, you just reminded me of her so much. So soon I had a chance to have quite a few conversations while I was in the interview process of coming on board to PSR. And he wasn't wrong.
Good ambassador, that's for sure.
Yeah, Sue and I are two little peas in a pod. But, part of it is, we both have been in the industry just about the same amount of time. I mean, so we've seen it, do this, with contractors coming and going, technology coming and going. And, it's just really nice to have, somebody else and that peer level who understands, has been there, has done everything that you've done, and isn't a woman. That's cool, so to have another woman to talk to. There's, like I said, there's not a lot of us, and it's great to have that, that connection with somebody else. So we still talk regularly. In fact, I just talked to her yesterday to tell her Happy New Year and all that stuff and see how her new office is going. Right. But yeah, I think we're going to be lifelong friends. So, and I expect I should be joining her when I know where the new pair group is going to be in May.
To be determined. It is.
Yeah, I know. I figure.
I'm
But my
waiting.
plan is to be there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I'm waiting on bids back from hotels and things like that for us to decide where we're going to go. We're going to have a good time. We'll get you there.
Yeah. I enjoy going back, I mean, if nobody's done that or if they haven't, done any of the learning and the training, I really enjoy it. It's really nice to get together with, other people at your level and have experiences and conversations about, what's challenging in your market. What have you guys done? What do you typically do
Working it
here? How do you feel? How do you manage salespeople? What's your biggest challenge? So I found that immensely helpful. And I really enjoy it. And it's just nice to get together and, kind of have conversations. It, creates a nice camaraderie across the group and, just makes it feel more like a big extended family.
Well, that's the main reason we're doing
What we're going
right
for.
here.
That's right.
As we grow, we want people to have a avenue to kind of get to know people across, the nation. And from where we sit, you are the furthest person we can call
Yep.
across the nation. So.
Well, you know me, I am not shy. Always ready to jump into something.
I've had to pull you out of your bubble this morning, golly.
I know. I try.
Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us, Cori. It's been a pleasure to get behind the scenes a little bit and get to know you a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciated it, guys. It was nice to talk to you guys. I miss you.
I miss you too. We'll be seeing you though in the next few months. I appreciate you visiting with us, and we will talk to you later.
Okay, well, y'all take care.